Hello, and welcome back to yet another live episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. No fancy intro written this week, unlike John's last week that you didn't hear. It was absolutely brilliant. Something about run of the mill or something, I can't remember. But we're just back to dissect a 2-0 defeat up at Adam Forshaw's Blackburn Rovers. We'll just get straight onto it. Joining me tonight, Adam Price. How's things?
Good evening. Yeah. Been better, been worse. I mean, considering yesterday, but I think we're largely fine.
Good. Graham Clark, how's things?
Good. Had a great weekend in Blackburn, interrupted by 90 minutes of football.
Yeah. You were all at Blackburn, weren't you? You were there yesterday, weren't you, Adam?
Oh, well, I didn't expect to be called out like this. No, I wasn't. I managed to watch the game, but I'm not going to tell you how.
You're busy doing other things in life, are you, Adam?
I try.
Yeah. And somebody that I know definitely was at Blackburn, as I woke up this morning to various voice notes and videos of somebody creating endless chants whilst both pissed and on karaoke by the sounds of it. John Alsop, how's things?
Yeah, credit to friend of the pod, Sam, not that one, for an absolutely, I think, the best one of the evening, which was to the tune of Man-Eater. It was, and Jermaine Easter makes you work hard. Which I thought you would appreciate, Aaron. Didn't manage to capture that one on voice note. But yeah, no, we had a very good weekend in Manchester. Again, interrupted, as Graham said, by 90 minutes of football in Blackburn.
Yeah, great. I don't know who wants I was going to ask you before we went live. I don't know who wants the post-match run through, seeing as Sam's not here. Normally just give it to him. But Graham, you trekked all the way up to Blackburn and you unfortunately found yourself next to Joe Bell. So sorry to hear that.
Yeah. Well, no, it was slightly worse than that because originally he was about 8 rows in front of me, and I went down to say hello and how you doing, all right. Next thing I know, he's come up and sat next to me because he mistook row 20 for row 28 because he didn't have his glasses on. So I'm sandwiched between the drummer on the left and Joe on the right. And I can tell you that the normal, calm, authoritative broadcaster that Joe is nothing like the real live Joe on the terraces.
Which one perforated your eardrums most, Joe or the drum?
No contest. Joe. I've never seen somebody rant at a referee so often.
Oh, you should sit next to
some justification, but to cap it all, he was paranoid that Adam Forshaw was going to score. And of course, the inevitable happened. Although I think it was a slightly, I'm not sure, he just hooked the ball over his shoulder. Whether he intended to score, I don't know. But he was apoplectic with rage when Forshaw ran towards the Argyle bench. And it consumed him for the rest of the game, to be fair. They lost all objectivity and assessment and just continual rant. So I'm sorry to say all the myths have been dispelled. It wasn't a pleasurable experience. The drummer won. I'm very content. But just before I make the point, I thought he'd run towards the Argyle bench, but as it happened, he ran to his family and friends who were sat behind the Argyle bench, ironically. And he said he'd already wanted his son to score a score in front of his son, and he did. And that's why he ran to the bench. And I don't know whether many people noticed it, but
I know we might come on to this, but I'm absolutely not having this, to be clear. I mean, I'm happy for it to go on, but I'm not having it.
Miron said, because Adam called Miron over after the game, and they embraced. And if you've read Miron's quote...
No, I have. I absolutely have.
I looked at it again.
I mean, he knows he well knows what he's doing.
Sad as it is, he actually ran to the right of Miron, and my objective assessment was if his family was somewhere behind the Argyle bench, he could quite rightly get away with. Although I would understand why some might think otherwise. Joe did, discuss that. And he never let it go. He never let it go.
Good, got your back, Joe.
It does sound a lot like Joe Bell. We'll discuss that properly.
In a minute. As for the game, before Sam Allison got the better of Joe. I think the first 10 minutes, I just felt we were slightly off the pace. We were second to the second ball. We weren't, I won't say we weren't at the races, but we weren't like the competitive pressing best that we were with Liverpool and Millwall. And to be fair, I just think Blackburn had better players. Certainly the front four were as good as many in the division. And I think the Hardy injury was the one that it was a big blow to us, because Hardy had the ability to run beyond the defence. And when he came off injured, and it looks quite a serious injury, we didn't have that ability. They pushed up, they compressed us, they played wide, and I don't think we could really hold them, with the possible exception of Victor Palsson. I don't think anybody had a good game. Randall and JB were overrun in the middle, and Beidou and Callum Wright just couldn't effectively play as the 10s. And I think whoever scored the first goal was going to win, but it looked as though it was going to be Blackburn, and so it proved with Foreshaw's hook over the shoulder. So, yeah, I've looked at it a few times. I'm not sure he actually meant it, but anyway, he went in. And then we missed a couple of chances. I mean, if you look at the chart, we had some good chances. Callum Wright had a good chance in the penalty area on the right-hand side first in about 20 minutes, just after Hardy come off. Bundu had the missed kick from the keeper presented to him on a plate, which he had time to control it and either pass it to Beidou or bend a better shot. And of course, then we got the Beidou. I don't know if he missed. I don't know if we even touched it when Callum Wright crossed. We'd have made it 2-1, and we might have made a fight of it in the last few minutes. But all in all, I thought we were slightly off it. They outpaced us. They outplayed us. I mean, interestingly, they played a large number of long balls. And I checked the stats before coming on. They had 74 long balls, and we had 34. And I was quite surprised how many long balls they had. But they had 841 touches, and we had 384. And it felt like that. We weren't just on it. But I think the two more important games are coming up with Luton and Cardiff. So disappointing. Had a decent curry in the evening. And so got back about 4:00, and then was looking forward to coming on tonight.
Well, if coming on this podcast is the highlight of your day, then you've really ruined your Sunday. I can't lie, Graham.
It's the prospect of discussing the game with you out there, and I think that's what got me excited.
Love to hear that, John. Obviously, you were at Ewood. We've already mentioned that. Anything to add on the game as a whole?
Yeah, I agree with Graham's rundown, and we're going to discuss the Forshaw incident. I'm guessing I actually am Team Graham
for sure.
Brilliant. Sure, he's never heard that one before. Yeah, no, I agree with Graham's rundown. I just don't think it's like a particularly dramatic thing that happened yesterday. Seen, a little bit of catastrophism here and there, and I think it was just a game where we didn't quite play very well, and we were up against a very, very good side. I said on the pod after the Millwall game when there was a discussion about, will we be found out tactically? And I said, I don't think we will be, because I think our tactics are actually pretty simple at this point. And the challenge to other teams isn't, can you sort of find some intricate way of stopping us playing? It's, can you sort of outmatch us? Can you outfight us? Can you overwhelm us? And I just thought Blackburn did that. I thought they were absolutely excellent. And fair play to them. A year ago, I was at Ewood Park for the 1-1 draw, and I felt that, with the caveat that obviously I haven't been to all of our games since coming back up, that was the worst team performance I've seen us come up against in the flesh. Obviously, we were worse under Rudy in quite a few games. But I thought Blackburn that day, even though we couldn't beat them, were absolutely shocking, totally reliant on Sammy Schmodix for any kind of threat up front, didn't create anything otherwise. We ran them ragged in the second half when they were down to 10, and if we were not kind of at the Ian Foster era nadir of our confidence, I think we would have easily won that game. So, but the transformation in a year, in less than a year for that football team, I think is absolutely incredible. I thought they were incisive. I thought their movement was fantastic. I thought they moved the ball so quickly, so sharply. created some really excellent opportunities. The second goal is just obviously it's frustrating from our point of view, but it's a really well worked goal. I was feeling a bit skeptical that they would finish in the playoff places, honestly, but I think they've got absolutely every chance of it. I thought they were superb, and I think sometimes you just have to hold your hands up and say we were beaten by a better team on the day. I don't think the rest of our season will be defined by losing away from home to the team who are fifth and at the moment look likely to get into the playoffs.
Quickly, John. Just quickly, are you feeling okay?
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever heard you praise any opposition ever. So
I mean, the ground was half empty and silent. If you'd like me to focus on,
good.
On that aspect of things, but the actual team on the pitch were great. But I think actually to sort of put a positive spin on us, I thought we looked better than we did a year ago in that game. Now, of course, that day we got a 1-1 draw, but today this year we lost 2-0. But given the golfing quality between those Blackburn performances, I thought we actually stood up to this performance at times fairly well. 2-0 is still a fairly low margin game. At half-time, even though we were very disjointed going forward, I was pretty happy because I thought we played well and we were still at 0-0 and they hadn't really created much of a chance worthy of the name. I think under Wayne Rooney, I dread to think what the score would have been at half-time in that game against a team of that quality and incisiveness and speed. I think we could have been 3 or 4-0 down very, very easily. We weren't, and I think it just goes to show that the Muslich setup is basically what we need to be doing to try and stay up. Is keeping games tight even when we aren't playing very well. And in the second half, again, this is to take anything away from Blackburn. I felt they very much deserved to win the game, but ultimately the decisive moment in the game with respect to him is an absolutely ridiculous goal that I don't know if he meant it or not, but I just can't imagine how he intended to score like that because it's just not a shot that looks like it's going anywhere near the goal. And I think 999 times out of 1,000, that is going miles over the bar, floating wide, keepers claiming it, whatever. So it's not like we've been opened up or it's a mistake from us that has led to the goal. It's just it's a fluke. It's sort of a one in 1,000 fluke. Dan and I will be very upset with me for using that word after yelling at me for saying that yesterday. I think we have a semantic disagreement as to what that word means more than anything. But call it a fluke, call it a great strike. It doesn't really matter. It's the same either way. The game has been changed against us by a ridiculous moment that will not happen in most games this season. And then after that, the game got a bit more stretched. We tried to get back into it. I thought we were poor going forward all afternoon. Didn't really carve out much. And obviously they then picked us off. But they still haven't created like a ton of really clear chances. There's the header from Gay, which you should have outmuscled Maxi and Connor Hazard made a good save. But apart from that, Hazard's not really been massively tested. And that was against a really good team. I just don't think losing 2-0 against a team like that, especially when we had such an off day in terms of our sort of cohesiveness, is a disaster at all. I think it's a testament to how far we have come that that it wasn't worse, that we still were competitive in that game. I think you have to say we were competitive. I just feel like under Rooney, that game would have almost certainly got away from us very, very quickly, and our heads would have gone down. Actually, we were pretty competitive. It wasn't our day. We didn't play particularly well. The opposition played very well. I think that's about all there is to say about it. I don't think this is a particularly deep, concerning thing where we need to extrapolate loads of difficult lessons about the rest of the season. If you are going to do that, the one I think that would be valid is just to say that obviously we've been flying recently and feeling like we could beat anyone. This is a bit of a reality check, right? It's just a reminder there are some really good teams in this league and we're still not one of them, even if we do look a lot better. But that being said, we only really need sort of mid-table form to stay up at this point, I would imagine. And you could very easily see a team who are 11th or 12th in the league going to Ewood Park and facing that Blackburn team and getting turned over 2-0. That sort of thing happens all the time. So, I think just learn the lessons we need to learn from it on a sort of individual game basis and move on.
Yeah, I think Adam, John's touched on it a lot there, but El Champo in the YouTube comments is that Blackburn having their interim manager bounce like we did with Nance, so it's bad timing for us to play them at their place. Obviously, it's the second week in a row, where I haven't read your preview. Wow. And Sam's actually put the tweet out, which has shocked me a little bit. Obviously, how much did they differ to life under Eustace, or was it much of a much?
I mean, the bounce, as it were, it hasn't hindered them for sure. I don't necessarily think there were huge differences in the style of play as we expected. The shape was very familiar. What they do is generally impressive. I think, as the comment said, particularly at home and particularly going to their place, this was always going to be tough. And I agree actually with an awful lot of what's already been said. No doubt a lot better than I could possibly have put it. But it's one of those days, ultimately. Things haven't gone quite right for us. Things have gone very well for them. And they are a very good team in front of their own supporters. And they've got in the end, a comfortable victory. It's not something that I think we're going to look at and go, this is a disaster or this is season over or anything like that based on what's happened for the last few. It's just a shame. And when you're in our position, you're very, very rarely going to find a team in any league, particularly the Championship, that's going to win home and away every week. We are obviously an extreme example, but it is what it is. A way to a playoff chasing team in this league, and I don't think anybody would have suspected at the start of the season, but that's exactly where they are. We've shipped a couple of goals, we lost the game, and can move on quickly. I think that is what it is. And I appreciate that's a bit of a tangent from where it is, but I think it's just a testament actually to how well Lowe has done since he's taken it up there. That's two wins since he was forced to take the reins without conceding a goal. They've it's been hidden actually for a lot of the time that Argyle have been back in the Championship, but Blackburn there and the squad they've got now is actually there's a lot of talent in it. It can be a very strong side on its day, and yesterday clearly was its day. And I think, if anything, it's a case of Lowe's built on what Eustace has already done. Because, let's not forget, their new manager bounce, as it were, is going to be very different to ours. We parted with our head coach by choice. Theirs was very much by circumstance. But I think it's a continuation more than anything. And you can't knock it. It's a 100% record since he took over in admittedly only 2 games. And I do tend to agree, if they appoint well and they manage this well, they could easily find themselves in the top 6 by the end of the season, playing like that and playing as they have, particularly at home in recent weeks and months. So, yeah, bad day. Not a great time to play them. Tough place to go anyway. It's one where hopefully we can move on quickly. Ultimately, this isn't our fight. In the grand scheme of things, our fights are very, very much to come. It's not to say it's a shame. I mean, I do feel for those who did actually put in some effort and travel yesterday, as I didn't. Yeah, either way, I'm sure the mood through most of them who weren't raging at Sam Allison at the time would have been quite similar.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in terms of like nobody would have predicted it at the start of the season. I think you'd swap Blackburn and Luton around, wouldn't you? As in like one for a promotion push and one for a relegation fight. So, and obviously we go to Luton next. We'll get onto that. Graham, 2 changes to that starting lineup. I'm still not sure how to say it. People say Puach, but I'm not sure that's quite right. And JB in on the bench and Palsson out. Like, you know,
I think the issue
see Puach come back in, but I'm not sure about that JB Randall midfield still.
No, I apologise for who wrote it, but somebody on Passotti pointed out that in the last 17 games with JB and Randall playing together, we haven't won any of them. We've drawn 6 and lost 11, scored 6 goals and conceded something like 30-something. And they don't seem a natural couple to me. So I was a bit worried about that. If I'm going to take one thing away, we are going to have, we're playing the higher intensity, quicker pressing game, but that's one hell of an effort over even part of the season. And there was a piece in the Sunday Times today about how Tottenham have been struggling with the amount of high intensity pressing and running that they've done. And we're a little bit thin. I mean, Miron mentioned about TJ can only play 35 minutes or so. Obviously, Jordan Houghton is probably can't do 2 games in a week. And we're beginning to look a little bit, with squads looking a bit thin. And, we've got some high intensity games coming up. And as Dan Underwood said, I expected Boateng to come on yesterday and he didn't. Is he not up to speed? Is he not up to the required running intensity runs and all that they're required to do? We've only got 14 games and the next 2, whilst not definitely season defining. If we lose both, we are really in trouble. But I'm just airing a cautionary note. Can we sustain the level that he wants with the squad that we've got over the 14 games that we've got to play? And I don't know whether yesterday was a touch of tiredness. You know, they've had 2 intense games at home park, travelling up. It's, you know, all the travelling is quite tiring itself. I know they flew up to Blackpool. I don't know if they're flying up to Luton on Wednesday, but all that travelling, shortage of time to recover, prepare for the next game. It's just a cautionary note, that's all.
Yeah, I think on JB personally, I think it's such a shame after a few people have said it in the comments already, after how well he played in that Liverpool game. And it looked like finally, you know, Miron had somehow made this Randall JB partnership work. And it's just, like you said, it's just not really working, is it? Adam, to come back to you, sorry to to break up the clockwise agenda. Graham mentioned it in his initial run through, but the Victor Palsson redemption arc needs to be studied, doesn't it? Because before, you know, I'm not going to blame him at all for any of those goals. I think actually, as Graham said, he was one of our better players on Saturday. Yeah.
I imagine at some point, it's probably rare, there's probably been a podcast guest who suggested playing Victor Palsson at centre-back in a assistant suit, who's probably feeling very smug at this moment in time. I don't know, you have to ask him. But hey, it's Victor Palsson, I think, I've said a few times, the way that I'd put it is, if he was signed in January to join this back three with Katic and Talovierov or Maxi, as I'm going to call him for ease. I think we'd all be absolutely fine with the
Sorry,
way that
really quickly. Have you seen the Argyle TV's pronunciation of Talovierov? There's a clip. I think Voodoo put it out. It's I would suggest everybody go and see it because it's genuinely hilarious. Anyway, sorry, carry on as you were.
No, I look forward to it, absolutely. So yeah, if Palsson had been brought in as part of that back three and it performed just the way that it had, I think people would say, yeah, this is a tidy signing we've brought in. It is, of course, everything that happened before that's clouded judgments, and in a large extent, that's fair enough. Although I will obviously point out, as I often do, that he's played significantly out of position before this January. We'd only ever seen him play under Wayne Rooney, and I don't think it's, knowing what we know now, particularly fair to judge a player on that period of time where it's apparent that we just weren't coached. So it's the Victor Palsson that we've seen over the last few weeks is the one that I'd hoped we'd signed, and the one that I was hoping and expecting we would see for the start of the season. The sort of leader at the back, the sort of person who can get involved in these defensive actions, can win his duels. He won plenty of duels yesterday, and I think the leadership qualities, I think we've all seen it. I think based on the way, I go back, for example, just to the first goal at Sunderland. It turned out to be an own goal in the end, but you saw in the long replay of the celebration, Palsson calling everyone together to celebrate the goal. He's clearly got a presence, and he's clearly someone that's respected in spite of the way that he performed from August to, let's say, December. And it's encouraging to see. Now, ultimately, I will still look at it and say this is a guy who's 33 now. We're looking long term. Is he someone that could be a mainstay in this backline for a few years? He probably isn't. But I think the way that he's performed since Muslims has come in, alongside those that have been introduced back to the side, he's been the player that I was hoping we would see for a very long time. And I'm glad, at the very least, that he's getting some good performances behind him. He's getting a bit more respect for the way that he's playing, and yeah, I'm pleased for him. I don't necessarily know if I expect it to go on, nor do I think that he's necessarily in our first choice back three when everybody is fit, which of course is not necessarily going to be the case all the time. As Graham mentioned, this is a high intensity way of playing, and it could cause a few of those injuries here and there, as I think we've already seen. But when he's needed, when he needs to go into a position like that, and performs the way that he has done for the last few weeks, I'm a happy man. I look back at my comments, obviously, then at the start of the season and think, Christ, my head can't fit through the door right now. But hey, that's just a small victory for me, and a larger victory, I think, for Plymouth Argyle if he starts playing as well week in, week out.
Obviously, you mentioned Rooney there as a passing comment, a bit of a joke, but like, I just find it really funny that he's re-signed for Rooney and was absolutely terrible under a bloke that he was supposed to be his man, and then he leaves and all of a sudden is decent. That's just, I find that really weird.
It's a bit mad. Again, obviously, as we heard throughout November and December, nobody in the world could have been managing or coaching Plymouth Argyle better than Wayne Rooney, and we should all get off his back. And I think that's clearly been demonstrated, hasn't it?
John, okay, I'm going to come back to you this time. Ryan Hardy obviously went off with an injury. It's a shame to see. Obviously, a man that we know thrives off that confidence and that form. Hopefully, this doesn't knock him too much. I don't know if there's been an update. Graham said it seemed like he was going to be out for a while, but I've not seen an update personally. I've been a bit busy today, to be fair, but
I just heard what Muslich said in his interview yesterday, which is that it looked initially not great, but I'd be surprised if they put out an update about his fitness on a Sunday, although I haven't checked.
Brilliant. Obviously replaced by Michael Baidoo, who seems to be, well, I think we've mentioned this before, but seems to be the current scapegoat amongst the Argyle fan base. I don't know. I was a bit confused by the sub because Al Hadj looked much better off the bench in midweek. I thought maybe he would have gone with him.
Scapegoating Baidoo, is it, Aaron?
Yeah, it is actually. Yeah. No. I think it's a bit too early for that, but who becomes the Hardy replacement then? Obviously, Ballymumba's not been getting much game time either. Who would you play off the right going forward?
Well, we don't know how seriously Hardy is hurt, so I think we have to hope that it's not that bad, but it does, seem unlikely that he's going to be there for Wednesday, or maybe even the other games going sort of forward in the next few before that FA Cup game against Manchester City. Just to come on to Baidoo, I think that obviously there is some scapegoating going on for sure, but I think the reason people are being critical of him is mostly that he just hasn't shown anything since coming in. Now, I think there definitely might be a number of reasons for that don't necessarily add up to just he's not good enough or whatever. He clearly is not quite up to the pace of the league. I think there's been some suggestion that the Allsvenskan's fixture schedule obviously essentially hasn't had a pre-season coming in here according to the schedule that he was on before, so he's still getting up to pace. I think obviously he's been ill since being here as well a little bit, not really had a run of games in the side, so I think there are reasons that are all perfectly reasonable as to why he might be looking off it. And I think I have seen bits and pieces from him that suggest there is a real quality technical player in there, and including yesterday. Actually, Graham mentioned he wasn't sure if he got a touch. I think he did get a touch on that ball in, where he sort of chested it towards goal. And for me, it's actually a really good effort because it's sort of an interesting ball in, I think, from Sorinola, but it's not sort of a particularly great ball in the sense that it doesn't sort of leave him with a lot to be able to do. And he sort of thrusts a body part at it instinctively and actually brings what's a pretty smart save from the goalkeeper. So I think there is something there. I think at Brentford away in the cup, I remained very impressed by how he pressed that day. I thought he was off the ball work was really excellent, very high intensity. He had that sort of moment where he carried the ball forward and won us a free kick while about 6 defenders tried to stop him. So I'm not exactly concerned yet that we've signed a dud, but as a couple of people have noted to me, there hasn't really been any improvement. And in fact, actually, if he did play well in that Brentford game, he's sort of regressed, if anything, which is a little bit of a worry. I certainly see him as being the sort of player who, could, if we go down into League One, just be absolutely phenomenal at that level, or who could even be good in the Championship for us. But obviously, time is not really on his side at the moment. If it was earlier in the season, I'd love to see him given a run of games. But I think now we've got to go with the options that do look like they're the most fit, the most match ready, and the most likely to have an impact in the immediate sense. And I think Al Hadj looks more like that player than Baidoo to me. As Aaron said, I thought when we mentioned this on the pod the other night, but when the subs came on against Millwall, there was a sort of a real loss of intensity in the attacking areas. Now, part of that again could be attributable to the fact that it was already 4-0 when those subs were made, and then subsequently 4-1 or 5-1. So it wasn't like the sort of most desperate situation to go and need to burn a load of energy. But I thought Al Hadj actually did quite well of the ones who did come on. He looked sort of quite sharp in his off the ball work and his defensive work, which is not necessarily something we've seen from him all the time. I think Rudy was quite explicit in being frustrated with his off the ball endeavours. So I think he's a player who hopefully will be a little bit of a template for Beidou, where he also looked quite off it after having an impressive debut for some matches. But I think then sort of once he came in and started to get a run in the side, has contributed a couple of goals and looked generally a lot better. So I think I'd be minded to bring him in for Hardy as the sort of most natural replacement in that position. Obviously, you're not quite going to get Hardy's intensity of work rate or Hardy's goal threat, but I think you might get something maybe you might get a little bit more guile than Hardy offers possibly, and you might get someone who's got that little bit more quality on the ball to thread moves together. I think Beidou was sort of lacking in both those departments yesterday. The other option, seems to me to be to drop Bundu into that hole and bring in Tijani up front. I was not particularly enamoured of Tijani's contribution yesterday after he came on, but unlike some others, I actually thought he did okay in the Liverpool game. And I think this all seems to be a big fitness question with him, right? Muslich, every time he talks about him, alludes to the fact that he's missed a lot of football. And even though he's sort of been, I guess, back for the best part of a month now in terms of being on the training pitch and coming on in games, clearly he's not fully there. But if we can sort of build it, if let's just say Hardy's out for a longer period of time, we can build Tijani's match fitness up. I think having him as a sort of the big striker and then Bundu in behind where he can also kind of, compete aerially for balls that are sort of launched into the right channel, but sort of uses pace and directness and quality. And obviously, he's got a great finish on him as well. I think that could work. Bundu's proven himself to be very versatile this year. He's absolutely terrific off the right wing against Middlesbrough in that game that we drew 3-3. Obviously, this would be less of a winger's brief. It would be more of a sort of number 10, but I've no doubt that he could do that. So yeah, those would probably be my two immediate fixes. I think if Tijani is fit enough to start a game, which does not seem to be the case at the moment, then I probably would do him and put Bundu in behind. Given again that as I've just said, that doesn't seem very likely. I think I would do probably Al Hajj as the straight swap. I do like the Mumba shout as well. I don't hate it at the very least, although it isn't really his completely natural position, but he does sort of have a kind of Hardy-esque sort of buzzy pace and intensity about him. But yeah, obviously it's a blow, isn't it? He's been really good recently, and it's a shame to see that sort of stopped in its tracks as much as it's going to hurt us as well.
Yeah, just really quickly, chucked a poll up on YouTube and Twitter. Mumba seems to be winning the YouTube vote, whilst Al Hajj is currently winning the Twitter vote. So it's split. There's still time to get your votes in. If you're watching this back, your votes may still be charged, or whatever they say on the X Factor, or whatever it is. I think we should move on to the Forshaw celebration. Graham, you've already had your say on it. Adam, you don't seem to agree with with Graham's take.
I have absolutely no doubt that he's decided to celebrate with his family and celebrate in front of his son, which I'm sure is a lovely moment as he's finally done something useful for the first time in 9 years. But I think he clearly knows what he's doing in the way that he's celebrating. If it's not to wind up the bench in a way that maybe he's already had a word with Muslims, or maybe he says it afterwards or something like that, he knows exactly what the supporters, at the very least, are going to think when he runs directly over to our bench and celebrates in front of them. It's the way he's used his experience is said a lot, and he didn't use it much while he was a player for us, but he's clearly somebody who knows what he's doing, knowing that going over there is going to rub people up the wrong way. And a football ground's a big place, and there's quite a few angles to watching football. Last I checked, if he goes 10 yards down the line, he's still directly in front of his family, and he's not celebrating in front of the Argyle bench or the Argyle coaching staff.
Yeah, if anything, he's closer to his family there, right?
It's weird, that, isn't it? Yeah, he's almost doing even more of what he claims he wants to do. I think it was a cheap shot. I think that there was no need for it. And
quite a good shot, actually.
I thought it was a fluke personally, but each to their own. But
how can you say that?
Oh, yeah, no, I'm going to get angry letters, aren't I? But no, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, and I think it was poor form from a guy who yeah, but by all accounts, we've accommodated to a lot of his needs in getting him this move. I think he could have shown a bit more respect.
I personally, I absolutely love it if there was a point to it. Like other players doing that, I would be.
I've heard
like,
this.
I just don't get. Like, what
I've heard this.
do something wrong?
Of people saying, and it's slightly the point of, would we love it? Oh, we'd love it if a player scored against their ex-club for us and went up to their fans. I mean, would we? Would we? I mean,
we would if there was a bit of needle, right?
Maybe, but
we let him go closer to home. We cancelled his contract to help him out.
I mean, yeah. I mean, exactly that, and also the fact that I think if I'm a Blackburn fan, I'd be more concerned of, hooray, he scored a goal for Blackburn Rovers, then hooray, he's rubbing it in the face of a club that's, clearly our local rivals, Plymouth Argyle, which are only 300 miles away.
There's clearly no precedent for a player, just hypothetically, whose name might rhyme with Chandre Bray antagonising an away fan base of a club he used to play for, seemingly after they were booing him all game earlier this season. That there's no precedent there at all.
But when that happened, I think everybody was like, wow, Andre Gray scored a couple of goals for Argyle. I love this. Not, Andre Gray scored a couple of goals against Watford. I don't think anyone really.
I love
it. I'm with Graham on this. I think I didn't think at the time. Honestly, at the time, it didn't actually even cross my mind watching him celebrate that he was doing it to antagonise the bench. I didn't know his family was sat up where they were, but to me, it looks like his line of sight is clearly fixed on the upper tier. It looks like he's celebrating with his own supporters. To me, also was pretty much in a state of deep shell shock that he had put the ball in the back of the net. So, but then I looked at it and heard what people had to say about it and thought, after hearing them, that he had sort of done it on purpose. But I think then watching it back and remembering a couple of other things from the game, I just don't think it makes too much sense. First of all, I'm pretty sure that when he was substituted, he clapped the away end. So I'm not really sure how that's consistent with, hating the club so much that he's gone over to the bench and decided to make a show of celebrating. Secondly, we're talking about he knows what he's doing. Obviously players these days, when they score goals, learn these sort of intricate TikTok dances, don't they? TikTok was genuinely created in the year when Adam Forshaw last scored a goal. I don't think this is a bloke who's putting in time on the training ground, doing his Sue celebrations or flossing or whatever it is that the Gen Z do these days. So I think probably it was a moment of surprise for him, particularly also as he's hit a shot that looked primed to take down that asteroid that everyone's talking about destroying the Earth, and obviously somehow it's kind of gone on a trajectory where it's been intercepted by the top corner of the goal. So it does, I think he was probably as shocked as anyone else. And when the adrenaline kicks in, you don't necessarily know what you're doing. Thirdly, if he's going to antagonise us, he could have run the whole length of the pitch and done the Adebayor full knee slide. And do you know what? I'd have respected him if he'd done that. He probably would have snapped his meniscus if he'd done it. I'm surprised that he didn't do that, running over to the side of the pitch. But and I'll be honest, I joined in with the jeering and booing of him, just I thought it was kind of fun in a pantomime way. But he didn't really deserve it, and if he wants to give a little bit back after scoring the goal, I think that's what football's all about. I think he's got absolutely every right to do it. I think the bloke was absolutely titanically useless for us this season. He was okay last season. We've obviously had this conversation before. I was very, very glad to see the back of him, and it's all fun and games when, you look at Blackburn fans on the internet saying he's been absolutely abysmal for them. But it's just absolutely what football is about, that he reserves his best performance and shows what he can do in a game against us, and then gets that goal through pretty much complete chance. And if he wants to celebrate that whichever way he wants, I have to say I don't particularly care. I don't think this is one where there's I think if Whittaker had scored that goal and then sort of run to the bench and done something pointed or run to the away end, then I might see a bit more sort of needle and logic to it. But I don't really see where the needle is particularly supposed to be here. I thought the sort of booing of him felt very pantomime-y, not like a kind of sincere expression of hatred or animosity or anything like that. That celebration to me just looked like the sort of exuberance of a player who unexpectedly just scored a goal for the first time in 9 years. His family were sat there. I just have a hard time seeing any malice in it. Sorry, Adam. Sorry, Aaron.
I think we should also note that's probably the furthest and fastest he's run all season. I think
maybe if he went the 10 years further that I'm suggesting he should have done, he'd have broken both legs. I don't know. The thing that sticks to my mind is and look, this is a very different reason for Needle. I've got a quite more serious one at that. But I remember Manchester United beating Liverpool a few years back. I say. It was 2012. It was literally 13 years ago. And I think there was a scene at the end which started a bit of a kerfuffle, shall we call it, where Patrice Evra was celebrating in front of the Stretford end. And it just so happened that Luis Suarez, who'd racially abused him, was walking by at the time. And I have a lot of respect for Evra for doing that, because this is a very different reason. But there's plausible deniability there. Patrice Evra can just say, I'm just celebrating in front of my own fans.
His kids were literally sat there. His kids were sat there.
His kid was sat 10 yards down the other way. His kid was sat over there.
How do you know?
Yeah. Because we've seen the photos of where they are. It's like if I.
But he's angled his body. I can't believe
falling out with Aaron and just jumped in front of Graham and said, "Yeah, oh, Aaron, you're there also. Oh, what a shame. Well, I'm going to celebrate here anyway." Yeah, it's like, no, he knows for a fact what he's doing. It may not be at the forefront of the line.
Only on this podcast would you get a frame-by-frame OSINT analysis of a goal celebration, like it's the Zapruder tape of the Kennedy assassination.
That's absolutely what we're here for.
But you know, on that, having
no idea what you just said, John, but sure.
The Zapruder tape, it's the footage of the Kennedy assassination that people like Joe Bell and Sam Down like to look at for inconsistencies in the official narrative as to what happened. But from the photo that is available, that was taken by his family, he's very clearly angled towards them. He doesn't have to go and like geometrically measure being at a right angle to where they're sat in the stand in order to
be angled towards the Plymouth Argyle bench as well. Again, this is what I'm saying. I'm sure he wanted to celebrate in front of his family. I'm sure he also. This is a little bit of plausible deniability as well. Maybe we're both right. Just
to get Adam Foreshaw's take on it, he did post on his Instagram story last night saying, "No bad intentions with the celebration and sorry for how it came across. This is where the family was sat behind the benches," and he has uploaded a photo. And Adam is correct; they are maybe 10 yards further down.
But he's angled towards.
In my opinion, if you're going to do that, just own it and just say, "Yeah, it was hilarious," and
also,
move on. Don't try.
He was barracked. He was barracked by our fans for the entire game, and he clapped towards our end when he came off. This is not the action of a man who hates the club. And
if only we had a body language expert on the pod who could have told us whether that was sarcastic clapping or not.
He was stood next to me during the game. The body language expert.
The other one.
He was waving goodbye.
Yeah,
because he didn't get to do it in the flesh. So at the time.
Right. It is a real shame, isn't it, that he didn't get to do that. The only thing I want to add is if you look at I watched it back on the highlights, the ITV ones, you could just see Kevin Nanskiville, and I think it's Tajani, just looking really confused, just being okay, like, I'm sure there's a reason for this, but I'm not sure what it is. And then Tajani has to cover his mouth because he's laughing, so he doesn't know either. So yeah, great. Anyway, moving on. Is there any individual?
Johnny is Foreshaw's kit, right? I think that's where the confusion stems from here.
Yeah, that's what the confusion is. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine his kids have ever seen Forshaw score. They are young.
They haven't.
No, that's mad. It's mad. I mean, neither have we. So, yeah. Anyway, any individuals you guys want to pick out for better, for worse? I think we've covered most of them. I don't know if there's anybody. No,
I don't think he's been mentioned. So just a quick one on Connor Hazard, who I thought was largely fine again. And it's just, I think, helping him a lot, actually, that he's clearly been told he's the number one, and he's clearly been given the confidence of head coach, which he hasn't really had since he's arrived. Last season, for obvious reasons, Michael Cooper was first choice. And this season, I think, even though he started the season, and even though it was an injury that took him out of the side, I think it was pretty clear that with the style of play that Rooney was always going to prefer Grimshaw at some stage, and it just so happened that he came in when he did. So I think since Hazard's been back to the side, I think he's been very good. And yesterday, again, he wasn't hugely challenged, but what he did have to do, he did well, and the goals were nothing down to him. So I'm really hoping he carries on.
He did that one unbelievable catch, right? Where the ball is like flying it in really fast, or did I dream that?
Is that not what goalkeeper? Is that not his job?
So there was one ball which came at him really, really fast, and he.
I'm not the word. I wouldn't use the word unbelievable. I would expect any championship keeper of competence to have done the same. But one thing I will say about Connor, is that he's got the confidence because he's got 3 centre backs in front of him that can deal with the crosses that otherwise he might have to come for. And I think we shouldn't underestimate that. He's got the reassurance that they've got every chance of winning most, if not all, of the headers. In fact, I think Victor Palsson won every header in the game yesterday. So I think that's part of the reason for Connor having greater confidence, and he can concentrate on doing the shot stopping, which he's really good at.
Which we know is his key strength. Yeah, exactly that. And I think for a lot of those reasons, he's clearly in his best run of form for Argyle. I think we can safely say at this point in time. And yeah, let's hope that carries on.
Yeah, on the like just knowing that you're the number one thing, as you've both said, I can imagine that really does help. Which is why it always confused me that Rooney didn't tell any striker that they were their number one striker, because surely as a bloke that grew up in the game, surely he knows that that's how strikers work. But anyway, he's gone now, so we don't need to discuss him anymore. And hopefully this is the last ever mention of Wayne Rooney on the Green and White podcast, brought to you by Argyle.
What about Steven Schumacher? We mentioned him.
No, Sam's not here. We'll mention him next week. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, get involved in the comments, all of that good stuff. Get that in midway through. I don't think actually, I can see it. We're 46 minutes in, or as Stan would say, into the 47th minute. Should we move on to a Luton preview? They've not won since Boxing Day, John. Surely, if we are to stay up, right, we have to be winning on Wednesday.
No, I don't think so. I don't think any individual.
I didn't think you would.
I don't think any individual game is a must-win. It's, we've just got to get it done any which way we can. And actually, I think for this one, I think a defeat to Cardiff at the weekend would be more damaging, because Cardiff feel like they're getting away from us a little bit, whereas we're above Luton, right, still. So it wouldn't be a case of them stealing a huge march on us. Obviously, it would be a blow and it would be a setback, and it would in turn be a lot more damaging than losing yesterday. But, I think there potentially are more important games to come. Again, especially also because we're much better at home, as we know. So, I don't think it's a must win. I think, obviously, our wins this season that we have had have actually, apart from against Portsmouth, have come in games where you wouldn't have expected it as well. So it's possible that we will lose tomorrow and on Wednesday, and everyone will get very depressed about it and say we're down, and then, we win 2 or 3 in a row, and, we're sort of back on top of the world again. We'll see. I think there's going to be a lot of ups and downs between now and the end of the campaign. I think with this game, that, obviously, I don't want anything I've just said to be interpreted as me saying it's sort of just like a game like any other. Clearly, it is a really, really important one. And they should be. I mean, they're in a very, very bad place, right? Also, their form's not very good. Yeah, beat you to it. The form's also not very good. And I think also they have really fluffed their change of manager in a way that has not been true of any other club that's down there. I was having this conversation over the weekend, but every other club sort of who's been in the mix at the bottom at various points in the season, apart from Pompey, who have rightly stuck with Mousinho and have seen improvement because of it. And I think based on their sort of form since the beginning of the season, they're actually trending much more up than down, and they'll be fine, I think. Every other club has changed their manager for the better. We have, some would say. Hull made an improvement in their managerial situation. Cardiff, I think the jury might be out a little bit, but I don't think certainly Reza hasn't done any worse than Bullock was doing, and has arguably certainly done better in spells. Luton, to me, I mean, that's a managerial change that really smacked of arrogance. They've not gone for someone who's a firefighter or has a sort of proven record at this level. I think they've gone for a young coach who surely is promising based on the job he was doing at Wickham. But League One to the Championship, as we know, for any manager, no matter what their sort of talent, is a big step up, and doing it halfway through a season where you're coming into a club that seems to have an absolute crisis of confidence on its hands. That's a really bold, that's a really, really bold appointment. And to me, it smacked a little bit of, we think we're getting out of this because we've got the quality in the squad. We don't think this is a serious prospect of us going down. We'll be fine. At the moment, I think they look like the worst team in the league. And I think it's not, based on sort of recent results and just the way they're playing it, they look terrible. So it's a huge opportunity for us to go there. I think it will be a tight game. I think it'll be a scrappy game, but as we know, we weren't a team that was geared up to do well in that type of fixture before, and now we are. I think we absolutely have the ability to go there, frustrate them, Because remember, if we can go there and get an early goal even, or even if it's sort of 0-0 at half time and the crowd are sort of getting on their backs a little bit and they're restless, that really plays into our hands. We're going to have a full away end. And obviously we know it's a tiny little ground. If you can sort of make noise from your end and the home crowd are disgruntled, that's going to probably sort of reverberate around the stadium. I think we can sort of create a sort of siege mentality almost a little bit. I think we've got a great chance of getting something. But, I don't want to sit here and say it's make or break, because I don't think that is the case. And I think if we go into it with that mindset and we do lose, even if we play well and lose, for example, then you don't want the players coming away thinking, well, that's it. We've thrown it in the bin. We'd still have a lot of opportunities to get points between now and the end of the season. So yeah, very important game, much more important than the weekend. Not make or break.
I know who Sam Down would have hired as Luton manager if he were Mick Harford.
Who would that have been?
I don't know. We said we weren't going to discuss him until next week. So
another manager who's been first choice for every championship job since he was sacked by the biggest club in the world in September. Is that who we're talking about?
I think that's who. But anyway, enough of the in jokes on this pod. We were told there is enough of those. Graham, this is our first visit, I believe, to Kenilworth Road since that 5-1 defeat on Saturday, November the 17th, 2018. See, I can do it too, Sam. Although I do it through Google, not through my head. Can you see a slightly different outcome to a 5-1 defeat? I hope so.
Oh, well, certainly that. I mean, I think that they play 3-5-2 under Matt Bloomfield with two big men up front, Morris and I can't remember the guy's name now. The other Adebayo, I think it is. Yeah. And that will play into our hands. They play long balls. I read Chris Wilder's quote for this when Sheffield United won on Saturday. They said, "We knew we would be up for it. They play long balls. We just had to deal with it." Well, hopefully that's meat and drink for our new sort of self-styled solid central defence. They playing 5 in midfield. I think it could be the battle of the wing backs, and whoever wins that will probably dictate the outcome of the game. I'm with John. I mean, I don't want to. I'd take 4 points out of the next 2 games, whichever way they come. To be fair, 2 points a game is the sort of return that we need to keep nudging up the league until the final reaches of the season. So, I'm following yesterday. I'm just a bit worried about our tiredness, and the rotation and the management of the squad has got to be spot on. And I do have some confidence that that's being done. I think Miron's quite smart with that, with the backroom team. I think it's time we scored from some set pieces. I think Miron said 40% of goals are scored from set pieces, and although I don't know whether you call the Katic one a goal from a set piece, technically it was about 2 touches before he got it. I noticed on yesterday that Hour, is it? That how you pronounce it? Was
I don't know. I got told off on my pronunciation last time, so I'm not going to tell you how to say it.
Well, our set piece coach, let's call him that, was in the technical area each time we had a free kick, each time we had a corner. And interestingly, and nobody's actually mentioned it, twice, I think 3 times, he took players out of the defensive situation for the corner and we had 1 up top with Bader, and then I think on one corner we had 2 up top with Bader and Callum Wright, which I thought was interesting. And I did wonder whether that's to give more space for the centre-backs to win the ball in the air. But everyone that says we need to keep somebody up, the ball never reached them because we never got control of it to do that. But I think it's quite interesting. But we need to score from set pieces, and Wednesday would be a perfect evening to start doing that. And I think it's going to be an aerial battle, physical battle, so more suited to us than Blackburn, who were, as John said earlier, swift passing movement side to side, incisive runs. I'm not sure Luton are going to be that sort of team, so it probably will suit us better as an away game.
Yeah, Adam, Graham's taken my question for you straight out of my mouth and answered it. So it was about tactical setup and style. Obviously, Matt Bloomfield, as John said, was at Wickham, so comes hand in hand with a slightly Route 1 direct style, doesn't it? What do you make of Wednesday? Can you see us getting the win there?
It's tough. I mean, Luton are I think one of the key things that's gone wrong for them is that nobody at that club seems to know what their best style is. Nobody seems to know what their best first 11 is. And they've tried so many, one formula after another, to try and get it right. And nothing's really worked for them. That's ultimately a lot of the reason why they find out or they find themselves where they are. Now, to answer the question, does that mean I can see us beating them? They're beatable. Don't get me wrong. We've already shown that this season. I think it was one of our very best performances to beat Luton earlier on in the campaign. But I go in with a little bit of trepidation. I'm not going to lie, because it's a big game for both sides. It's going to be, at least for some of it, a ferocious atmosphere. And yeah, I absolutely agree. If we can get on top early and if we can quieten that crowd down and get them a bit restless, we would do ourselves so many favours. The question then, of course, is do I trust Plymouth Argyle to make a good start and get themselves into the lead away from home? That feels like a different question altogether. I mean, I'm nervous for it. I can't see it going our way, is what I'm going to say, and hopefully that I'm wrong on that. But I will say, and I do agree with what's said earlier, we could lose this game and still stay up. I know time is running out and we can't say this forever, but there's plenty of points still to be won and lost, even if we don't win this game. Although, of course, it would do us a great favour if we did indeed go on and win it. I don't think I'm as confident as many, but hey, let's see. It's if we can, as the guys have said, get the better of them through our style of play, which we saw against Millwall, then we've got a chance. We've got a chance.
I think
score first. If we score first, definitely a result and probably a win. If we concede first, I think we're going to be up against it. I think it's that critical. So I think we've got points from every game we've scored first except one this season. Is that right? So that would seem to be the key.
We don't score first very often.
Well, exactly. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
I think to Adam's point about we can't sit here and say forever, that we don't need to win this game. But I think that's obviously correct. But at the same time, we got 7 points from the last 3 prior to the game at the weekend. And I'm old enough to remember when we all sat around on this podcast in our group chat saying, let's write off West Brom and Sunderland right now as being games against teams who are going to be too good for us. And let's hope we could just. This was after the 5-0 defeat to Burnley when it felt like really kind of baby steps. Thing that was necessary. I think a lot of our mindsets at the time were like, let's just write those games off. Let's see if we can do some good performances, maybe nick a point if we're lucky in one of them, and then sort of use that as a platform to then play, Luton, Cardiff, the teams in this more winnable run. As it happens, we've got 7 points from the next 3 games after we all said that, and then we also beat Liverpool in the FA Cup for good measure. And that run only really came to an end because we went to a very good team yesterday who had a good day, and we didn't particularly have a good day, and then things went against us. So I think we sort of, by getting those points, there is a little bit more latitude to not, win necessarily all of these games in what felt like this was going to be the crucial spell for us. It still would be amazing to be able to do it. Again, it's still really, really important that we give it our best go. But I was really impressed by Muslic's interview, actually. I know it doesn't necessarily matter what he said after a defeat, but it wasn't sort of the same tone as after the Burnley game or even the QPR game. Of the Burnley game probably should be treated a bit differently just because it was such a ridiculous defeat. But the QPR one where we only lost 1-0, he came out and I was actually quite surprised with how disappointed he sounded, with how angry he was towards the players. This was sort of coming off a week where obviously, again, we were riding high. He didn't, I thought he could have come out yesterday and said we were terrible, we didn't deserve anything out of the game, but it seemed much more geared at kind of picking up the players' confidence. It seemed calm, it was very much about communicating. We're not going to win every game in this journey that we're on, and that's okay. So yeah, I think it would be amazing if we could get something, and it would be really, really helpful. But not only are there still hypothetically a lot of points to play for, but we have won a lot of points against expectation in recent weeks, and that has given us the platform now to be able to say, it's not necessarily catastrophic if we go there and don't get something. We're not 7 points adrift anymore.
For the first time in what feels like a lifetime, we may have actually got this pod under an hour. But I do have a trivia question that I want to get in, so we haven't. I've ruined my own rule. 4 of the last 5 signings between Plymouth Argyle and Luton Town have been centre-backs. Can you name them? 2 went to Luton, 2 went to Argyle.
Sonny Bradley.
Correct.
Oh, I'm not doing my quiz prospects any favours here.
No.
You know that when Sam isn't on, there's just going to be dead air for segments like this, right? But give us a chance. How recently are we talking with the others?
One of them was 2021-22 season, joined on a free transfer. That's joined us on a free transfer. 2018-2019 from Luton Town to Plymouth Argyle.
There's Lloyd Jones.
Lloyd Jones.
Yeah.
As a loan transfer. The other one that you need to get is the 2013-14 season from Plymouth to Luton Town, free transfer. Centre back. Did he play centre back or was he more? But it says centre back on Transfermarkt.
Or was
And
he
to be
more
honest,
what, Aaron?
I was going to say, is he more of a fullback? But no, I think he was a centre back.
Crikey.
Cheated a little bit by seeing some of the comments come in on the 21-22.
When you say cheated a little bit, do you mean you saw the answer and now you're going to say it out loud?
Yeah.
No, I was specifically not going to say it in case anybody else did,
right.
but it's there now. So yeah.
Brendan Galloway is the other one. If you guys get the 2013-14 one, I'll be very surprised.
Did Galloway sign from Luton or was he a free agent?
From Luton. Free transfer, but from Luton.
I mean, Sonny Bradley was a free agent as well, wasn't he? So,
Exactly.
Yeah. Do these really count, Aaron? I mean,
No,
Chris Barker
not Chris
from
Barker.
Luton?
No. I'll put you out of your misery. Anthony Charles. There we go.
Yes.
right.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Oh, yeah,
Anthony
of course,
Charles.
Anthony. I was about to say that.
Yeah.
I was just going through the alphabet and Anthony would have been top of my list.
Yeah. Aaron would have been first. But anyway, quick predictions for Wednesday night, Adam.
Oh yeah, you'll start with the pessimist first. A really ugly and unsatisfactory 1-0 defeat. Maybe we'll make up for it against Cardiff, but yeah, it's just got the feel of one of those nights, and I hope it's not one of those nights. But that's what I'm going with.
Graham.
In our predictions, I predicted a 1-0 defeat, but I think after yesterday, I think it's a 1-1 draw.
Crikey, negative tonight. John, bring us some positivity. Give us that win. Prediction.
As regular listeners will know, I like to stick with what I've put in our prediction league, even though we said those a few games ago. And as it happens, with this one, I think I said we'd win 1-0 a few weeks ago, and I absolutely stand by that now. I think it'll be an ugly but satisfying 1-0 win where we really feel like it's an important one. And I did say we would lose on Saturday as well when everyone else had these sort of spasms of optimism that we were going to go to Blackburn and turn them over. I couldn't see it happening and was proven correct. So hopefully I can go 2 for 2.
Nice. And I will go also a 1-0 win because I can never remember what I put in the predictions league. The thing that we were supposed to update you all with every month that we don't. So it doesn't really matter.
You're going to copy the player who's top of the league then for your prediction, basically.
Obviously good to do that. That's the most sensible thing to do whilst I am languishing at the bottom. So that's fun. I can't remember we haven't decided on the forfeit yet, but it looks like I'm going to be doing it. So
I decided there wasn't one until it transpired that I wouldn't be doing it, and now I'm fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Duh. Anyway, I think that brings the end to another episode of Green and White, brought to you by Argyle Life. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, and you'll find us on your major podcast platforms. Hopefully, the issue with Acast is sorted because I see that the Millwall pod went live at 2 a.m. this morning when I definitely didn't ask it to do that. So hopefully that's sorted. That was a really fun conversation with some AI bot online earlier.
Technical issues with the Millwall pod.
Yeah. Well, trust me, it took a lot of editing, so hopefully somebody listens to it. Anyway, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.